has so long CV that it will take half an hour to read all of this. So, but my point is that he has an experience in many different countries, in many different levels, from top level till like normal level or regular level, and I asked him to talk about it, like what is the differences are in different countries and in different levels. So yeah, you can ask him later on questions, whatever, like on court, off court, but maybe he's talking about different levels and different biology, how to be a good coach, let's say like this, okay?
Okay.
It's yours.
Okay, so Coach, you can hear me back there in the back, Coach Hendrick? Hendrick, you can hear me? Good, everybody hear me good? Okay, Coach Hellar, thank you so much. It's great to be here, great to be invited here to speak to the Estonian Basketball Federation. This should be an easy clinic for me because I see it's a BS basketball clinic, which means, I guess it's a bullshit basketball clinic, so I can talk a lot of BS, so I should be able to fill up the void without too much problem. I think one of the toughest clinics I spoke was, as a college coach, I spoke to many different groups in the United States as far as a clinician, but I was invited over to Belgium to speak in Liège, Belgium. I did a basketball camp 1 week north of Brussels where they speak Flemish, and I did another basketball camp south of Brussels the second week, ran their camp where they speak French. And so that weekend in between on that Saturday, they wanted me to do a one-man all-day clinic for 8 hours. So I didn't mind speaking for 8 hours about basketball, but the one thing that made it difficult in Belgium was I had a translator. And evidently everybody understands English in here, right? Okay, great. Because as I spoke at that clinic there, my translator, I would talk, and he was speaking Flemish, translate, and then he would translate in French, and then I would talk, and then we'd come back to Flemish, back to French, back to English. So it was very difficult to try to hold the audience in the palm of my hand that day and keep them interested. So hopefully today will be much easier for me. And like you said, I've been in this business a long time, 40 plus years. I've coached at every level except high school. I've coached at every level in college. I've coached, of course, pro ball in the United States. I've scouted for Utah Jazz. I've been in Russia 7 years. I've been in Doha, Qatar 1 year, and been half a year here. And so anytime you go to a clinic as a coach, I think you want to add something to your philosophy of coaching. And whether I'm going to hopefully give you something today that's going to challenge your philosophies, and maybe you might want to add something to it, maybe you won't, but I'm going to try to bring some different things. I normally just talk basketball, X's and O's, but he asked me what topic I'd like to talk to you about, and I said, well, how about the psychology of coaching at all different levels? Because I felt like when I first came to Russia, this is one thing that a lot of the European coaches didn't quite understand, was what I refer to as the psychology of coaching. I'll get a little bit more detail a little bit later. But anyway, you're here preparing yourself not only for the rest of this season, but for next season, trying to add to your coaching book. So you're preparing, and you're trying to make sure, that you get there, be there before you get there. And what do I mean by that? Preparation. You're trying to prepare. Mark Twain says the definition for, Mark Twain is a great author in the United States. He said the definition of preparation is the future, you prepare for the future because that's where you're going to spend the rest of your life. And when I say be there before you get there, I'm going to give you an example of an NBA Hall of Fame player. This player, I coached college basketball for 19 years in Bergman, South Carolina, which is an hour from Florence, South Carolina, where this player grew up. A kid by the name of Ray Allen. You may remember him from playing in the NBA. He's an NBA Hall of Famer. And here's a situation that he found himself in. 2013 NBA Finals. He was playing for the Miami Heat against the San Antonio Spurs. It was Game 6 in Miami. They were down 3-2 to the Spurs. It came right down to the last 20 seconds. The Miami Heat are down 3 points. So of course, with LeBron on the team, Chris Bosh on the team, Dwayne Wade, your big three, you figure it's going to go to one of them, or especially LeBron. So sure enough, with less than 20 seconds to go, LeBron takes a shot. Chris Bosh realizes it's not going in. He worked himself in position to get the rebound, and as he got the rebound, Ray Allen had the peace of mind to totally understand that he was going to get the rebound. I'm going to backpedal and get behind the three-point line. He's going to pass it to me, which he did. Ray Allen shot it, and right before the buzzer went off, Ray Allen made the three, which put the game into overtime, which they won Game 6, and that forced Game 7, and they ended up winning Game 7 and became the NBA champions that year. Now, what do I mean by be there before you get there? Ray Allen, as an NBA player, he would, every game day, he would leave 3 hours before game time, get a taxi cab to go to the arena. Would take 1 or 2 assistant coaches with him. When he got there, for 30 minutes, he would practice his game shots for game spots at game speeds. So he had rehearsed this same three-point shot that he took there, where he had to back up beyond the three-point line. He didn't even have to look down. He knew he's behind the three-point line to make the shot. So that's where I'm talking about. He was there before he got there. Everybody with me? You understand where I'm coming from? It's kind of like you as a young kid. You're out in the backyard, you're practicing your free throws, you're practicing your jump shot, and you're going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bergman from 20 feet. He shoots, he scores. They win the NCAA championship. We've all tried to be there before we got there. This is a great example. So you understand me a little bit better. I think it's important for your players to understand that you are completely ready for practice every day. If you're not motivated and you're not coming to practice completely prepared and enthusiastic, how can you expect them to be? And one thing that I use is I use this iPad, and it has what they call an iPractice Builder. And in this iPractice Builder, you're able to put in all your drills. You can put a video of each drill, and you can also put everything about that drill in it. That way, when you get ready to make out your practice plan, if you want a ball handling drill, if you want a shooting drill, if you want a defensive drill, if you want a 3-on-3 drill, if you want a full court transition drill, you can just slide in and immediately you have your practice plan in a matter of 10 minutes. So, because if you come to practice and you're not totally ready to practice, how can you expect your players to be totally ready to practice and to be motivated to give 100% that day? So again, I can't emphasize that enough. I'm going to give you a little bit about my background, just so you understand where I came from. I grew up on a farm in Illinois, the state of Illinois. The town was about a mile away, and the town only had 300 people in it. So you can tell I grew up as a farmer. My dad was a farmer. He was a man who managed 3 farms for the guy that owned all 3 farms. So we, from 7 in the morning till 7 at night, 12 hours a day, just about every day, we're working in the field. Whether it's plowing, cultivating, putting up hay, straw, whatever. And you know what's amazing, on the weekends, those livestock, whether they're cattle or pigs, they eat on the weekends too. And so you had to make sure you fed them. But why do I bring that out? From my coaching philosophy and how that affected me, my dad was a workaholic. It was easy to watch him work, and because of that, it gave me the ability to be a workaholic too. Luckily, I have that in my philosophy. I'm not afraid of work. I've never been afraid of work. As a player, I could never understand why everybody didn't work as hard as they could in practice. That just didn't make any sense to me, especially as a player and then when I became a coach. Now I had to make sure that everybody was given 100% and doing what they needed to do in practice. From grade school where I grew up, we mainly were playing basketball, baseball, and track. We were so small we didn't even have football. We had 4 towns that went to my high school, and we still only had 300 people in the high school. I had 77 people in my graduating class. But how many people have seen the movie Hoosiers? Movie Hoosiers? Okay, not too many. Anyway, it was a great high school basketball movie. It talked about how crazy they are in the state of Indiana about basketball. Well, where I grew up in Illinois is the same way. If you didn't play basketball, you just weren't any kind of athlete. Practically everybody played basketball. Everybody wanted to be a good basketball player. Everybody wanted to make the basketball team. And just like myself, I did too. Especially when I was a sophomore in high school, we were in the state tournament. And fortunately for me, I had a great tournament. They wrote an article in the paper that I had a chance to get an athletic scholarship to play basketball. Well, my first love was baseball, but all at once, now that I have a chance to get a college scholarship so I can go to college and not pay my way, I said, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is for sure what I want to do. Because I don't want to have to work in the cafeteria or lunch line or whatever to work my way through college. I want to get a full ride. So luckily for me, there's a coach by the name of Jay McCreary from Indiana. He was the head coach at Louisiana State University, one of the colleges that recruited me to play. And I flew down there on my official visit. Beautiful campus. I was really impressed with him, especially when I found out about his background. Coach McCreary was a high school All-American for the state of Indiana. His high school won the state championship. He played at the University of Indiana. They won the NCAA championship when he played at Indiana. He's in the Indiana Hall of Fame. And him being in the movie Hoosiers, he coached high school ball at Muncie Central High School, but in the movie Hoosiers, they depicted it as Capital Central. And he didn't coach there. They depicted him as a black man. He was a white man. But he had won the state championship the year before. They didn't talk about this. This small team upset them in the state championship. Well, it worked out for him because he ended up becoming the head coach at LSU. And I was fortunate enough to play for him at LSU. Had a great attitude towards players, was so easy to play for. He continually would communicate with you, talk to you, and made you feel like you were $1 million every day. And I just can't say enough about this man. But after my freshman year, and freshmen weren't eligible to play varsity sports back then in the NCAA. You had to be a sophomore to be able to play on the varsity. Now, freshman, sophomore, all of them can play on the varsity. So going into my sophomore year, I'm hearing rumor that summer that we're getting a new head coach. And I hated to hear this because I loved my coach, Coach McCreary. And I felt like for sure I was going to start my sophomore year. And I found out that the coach that they were bringing in had a great son, a great high school All-American. So our athletic director at LSU wasn't any dummy. He said, if I'm going to bring in a new coach, I'm going to try to get a great player at the same time. So the name of the player that he brought in, the coach was Press Maravich, and his son was named Pete Maravich, which he developed the name Pistol Pete Maravich. How many people have heard of Pistol Pete Maravich? Okay, great, great. Well, anyway, when you're a college player and somebody comes new to your team, your first pickup game, you can't wait to play against each other to see just really how good is this guy. Well, the first time I played pickup against Pistol Pete, I immediately said, well, one starting guard position is gone. So I got to work trying to find a way to get the other starting position. And since he's such an unbelievable ball handler, unbelievable shooter, 6'5.5", unbelievable athlete, great peripheral vision, the most unbelievable passing skills. I said, I guess I better make sure I do what I can do on defense just so I can get on the court. And lo and behold, as a freshman, he also couldn't play on the varsity. So what did he do? He scored about 43 points a game as a freshman. They used to come and see the freshman game. They put 12,000 people in the stands to watch the freshman game. When the freshman game was over with, I was already on the varsity because I was a sophomore. He was a freshman. As the varsity game, as we were warming up, some of the people would be filing out because they knew Pistol Pete wasn't going to play in the second game. And we could be playing Vanderbilt, we could be playing Kentucky, it really didn't matter. But they didn't, somehow we couldn't keep 11 or 12,000 people in there to see us. So if we won, we always drew a little more people, but finally it came to the point that Pistol Pete became a sophomore. As a sophomore, he averaged 44 points a game. We averaged 50 points together. He averaged 44, I averaged 6. They called him Pistol Pete, they called me Pass and Pick. My junior year, I led the nation taking it out of bounds. That's how good a player he was. So, playing with an unbelievable All-American like this, you wonder, what do you have to do to please the coach? Because when you have a player that's scoring this many points, and this with no three-point line, you have to figure out, what can I do to get on the court? How can I stay on the court? Well, you got to make the coach happy, you got to make Pistol Pete happy. So that's why Pete, basically everybody was passing and picking for Pete and trying to get him open for a shot. But after he was a first-team All-American as a sophomore. He was a first-team All-American as a junior, led the nation in scoring both years. My senior year, his junior year, we won the all-college basketball tournament. We were ranked 18th in the nation. And we had finally gotten to the point where we needed to be. After that, we went and played at Alabama. And because we got the big head, we're too big for that game, we thought we didn't need to do anything to get ready to play. We just won the all-college tournament. We were ranked 18th in the nation. I could feel it in the locker room before the game. We are not ready to play today. Alabama at the time, we were playing the SEC game of the week. We were at Alabama. Alabama at the time was the worst team in the SEC. Because we weren't mentally ready, and because the coach didn't realize we weren't mentally ready, we ended up losing that game by 2. So then we go play at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt was like the second best team in the SEC behind Kentucky. At that time, Kentucky had Pat Riley, the great coach of the NBA. You probably heard of Pat Riley, and had another All-American by the name of Louis Dampier. But anyway, Vanderbilt, in a great game, we ended up losing by 4. Coach Maravich panics. We're playing at Auburn. We're still on the road. We come off this tournament. We're on our 3rd road game. And after the pregame meal, we normally go over a scout report. He called us all in for the scout report at the hotel. He writes up on the board, 18, 15, 12, 10, and 11. And he turned back and he looked at us and he said, we can't have this kind of balanced scoring and win. Well, when he said that, everybody's head completely hit the floor. Everybody turned off their antenna. They no longer listened to the scout report because everybody understood what Coach Maravich was trying to say is, we got to get Pete some more shots. If we're going to win, he's got to score more. Well, he was already scoring 43, 44 points a game. And the sad part about it was, we were playing great team offense and great team defense. We just got beat by not being mentally ready to play against Alabama. Against Vanderbilt, we were ready to play. Lost in a heartbreaker by 2 or 4 points. And then when we got ready to play Auburn, he thought we needed to do something different. That's why you need to communicate with your players and with your teams. You can find out Where are we? What are we thinking? Talk to the captain, talk to somebody. Find out what is going on with our team. Why are we where we are? Because when I roomed with Pistol Pete on the road, so when I went back to the hotel room and in the room with Pete, we're both laying on the bed trying to rest for the game that night, and you could feel the tension in the room. You could almost cut it with a knife. And because Pete's father was the head coach, how am I supposed to tell Pete, you know, Pete, I think your dad's wrong. You know, we're playing great team basketball right now. Well, why does he think you need to even get more shots? But I didn't say anything to him. I said, I gotta leave the room. I went down to my teammates' room, and there was a whole rest of the team in there. Everybody bitching and moaning because nobody felt like this is what we need to do. So the game plan was whoever crossed half court with the ball that night was going to shoot. Needless to say, we got blown out. So after the game, I'm walking to the locker room, and Coach McCurry, the guy that recruited me to LSU, he said, Rusty, he said, what do you think the problem is? I said, Coach, I said, do I really need to tell you what you think the problem is, what the problem is? He said, no, I understand. So luckily, between Coach McCurry and Coach Maravich getting together, they understood that they panicked and we need to go back to what we were doing before. And I'm going to tell you one last story about Pistol Pete, and then I'm going to go on. Let me say this about players. The average players want to be left alone. The good players want to be coached. And the great players want to be told the truth. Now, what do I mean by the truth? At the end of my senior year, at the end of Pete's junior year, we'd already been All-American for 2 years. I also played on the baseball team. I was playing baseball, but that day I had off. We both came out of the athletic dorm at the same time. He had a basketball under his arm. I said, Pete, where are you going? He said, I'm going to the gym. He said, I need to work on my game. I said, what do you mean you need to work on your game? I said, you've just been first team All-American. We're talking out of 5 guys. He was one of the 5 guys at his sophomore and junior year. He said, I need to work on my game. I said, come on, take a day off, come with me. Let's go find something else to do and just relax a day. He said, no, Rusty, he said, I need to work on my game. It was like he had to have his shot of not crack cocaine, he had to have his shot of basketball. He needed to work on his game. He said, why don't you go with me? I said, okay, I'll go with you. I'll help you put in the repetitions you need to work out. So as we worked out and as we talked, he wanted me to tell him everything that I thought was wrong, whether he was trying to shoot a jump shot, hook shot, whether he was trying to pass the ball behind his back, between his legs. He totally wanted the truth. Because some people don't want to hear the truth. And you know what I'm talking about. When you call a player to the side and you tell him exactly what he's doing wrong and he really doesn't want to hear it. Or maybe even worse, when you sit down and talk with the parents. And I learned as a college coach how to deal with parents. Luckily, I never had to coach high school. But in college, when I recruited, and I sat down in the living room with mom and dad getting ready to sign that scholarship, I'd say, look, I'm going to be Johnny's coach for the next 4 years. He's got a 4-year scholarship to come to Coastal Carolina University. I said, but I want you to understand, you can call me anytime you want to. You can come and see me on campus and we'll talk about Johnny's academics. But we're never going to have a conversation about Johnny's playing time. Because I've been coaching my whole life. I've been playing my whole life. This is what I choose, my profession I chose to do. So please don't come to me as a parent and ask me why Johnny isn't playing more, because you being a prejudiced parent, I won't make any sense to you whatsoever. So if you tell the parent the truth and nip that in the bud right away, you won't have any problem. It was the same way with Pete, making sure he understood the truth. I'll give you another example. In 2003, LeBron James came out of high school. We all know that Michael Jordan is a big brand on Nike. Michael Jordan, every 2 weeks to this day, he gets a check from Nike. Guess how much? 15 to 20 million every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks to this day. So Nike is trying to get LeBron to wear his shoe back in 2003. So what do? A friend of mine, Kevin Eastman, who I coached against when I was a head coach at Appalachian State, when he was at Richmond, he was a senior guard. And I'm talking to Kevin. At this time, he was working for Nike. He said, Nike wanted me to work out with LeBron James in Portland, Oregon, where the Nike home office is, and wanted me to work him out for 45 minutes. So I went out there and I worked out LeBron for 45 minutes. Not the 45 minutes that he wanted, but the 45 minutes that I wanted. And I kept stepping it up another notch. He said, we finally worked out an hour and 15 minutes. And he said, when we both got finished with that workout, that's just two people, the trainer and the player. I was totally soaked, he was totally soaked, is what Kevin said. And I asked LeBron, he said, LeBron, you all right? LeBron said, I'm good. He said, what do you mean I'm good? He said, this is what I needed. I needed someone to show me what it takes to play at the next level. He needed the truth. He wanted to hear the truth from somebody that would give him the truth. When you're the best high school player in the nation, and you're the #1 draft pick in the NBA, too many people are telling you everything but the truth. So these are the type of players, the great players, that you end up telling the truth to. And he accepted it, and that's why he continues to get better and better every day. Once I got done with LSU, Pete went to the NBA, and I went to graduate school to the CBA, got a graduate deferment. Because when I graduated from LSU, I was an infantry officer in the United States Army. Luckily for me, I did get a graduate deferment. Otherwise, I would have had to go straight to Vietnam. So I went to grad school. There was a CBA team in the state of Illinois, in Decatur. I went there and tried out and made the CBA team. So this was a great opportunity for me to make some money, help pay my way through grad school, and play at the same time. And then from there, once I got out with my graduate degree, I served my time in the Army. Luckily for me, the Vietnam War was over. I didn't have to go. I just served my officers basic. They let me out. And I took, the reason why I got my master's degree, I wanted to start out at the college level. I didn't want to start at the high school level. So when I got to the college level, I got a job in Wisconsin, small college in Wisconsin. And was working that summer, running the Milwaukee Bucks basketball camp. And Coach Meredith calls me up, my college coach. He said, Rusty, what are you doing? I said, Coach, I took a college job up here in Racine, Wisconsin. I said, I'm the assistant basketball coach. I'm the head baseball coach. I'm the head of the intramural department. I said, I do just about anything the athletic director wants me to do because he's also the head basketball coach. He said, well, I want you to be my assistant here at Appalachian State. The Pistol Pete had graduated from LSU a couple of years ago, and they decided to fire Coach Maravich. So he took a job at Appalachian State University in the mountains of North Carolina. He said, I want you to be my assistant. I said, Coach, I said, I've already signed a year contract here. I said, I don't know how I'm going to get out of it. He said, talk to your boss. See what he says. See if he'll let you out of that contract. He said, how much you making there? And you got to understand, this is 1972. I said, I'm making $9,000. He said, I'll pay you $11,000. Well, $2,000 raise sounds pretty good. Not only that, I was going to be a Division I assistant instead of a NAIA coach. So I talked to my boss, come back on Monday. I said, this is something I'd like to do, hoping to get a job like this 3 or 4 years down the road. I said, will you let me out of my contract? He said, yes, he let me go. So as I went to Appalachian State with my college coach, I realized that after all, he did have a heart. Because when you're playing for a guy, sometimes you think he's such a tough son of a gun, sometimes you think he doesn't even have a heart. But this guy really did. Treated me like gold. And anyway, Coach, we started a program that was NCAA 1 that went from NAIA to NCAA 1 overnight. And so what we did from there, won some games the first year, won some games the second year, but not quite enough. Going into the third year, we knew we had to win, otherwise we were going to be fired. About halfway through the season, we'd won 1 game. And Coach Maravich came into me, he said, I can't do it anymore. He said, these players that we have, he said, I'm used to the LSU caliber, I'm used to NC State caliber. He said, I'm not used to players of this lower talent. He said, you know, no matter what I do, I can't seem to get them to do what I need them to do. And I said, Coach, you can't do that. I said, if you do that, you'll never get another college job. You'll never get another head coaching job. He said, at this point, I don't care. He said, I'm going to go and talk to the AD, and I have to turn the team over to you. I said, Coach, don't do that. I said, let's hang in there a little bit more. Let's see what we can do to win some games and turn this thing around. Well, the AD came back to me, and I was already teaching a half a load. And I said, well, Mr. Jones, if you want me to take this job, you're going to have to take the teaching away from me. You're going to, all we got is a graduate assistant, that's my assistant. And I said, if I take the job, I said, I'd like to have the opportunity to have a chance to be the head coach next year. So when I talk about the psychology of coaching, all I did to try to turn this team around was individually try to lift every player up, try to reinforce them with positive reinforcement, each and every player. He had gotten so disgruntled with the players and had browbeated them and had beat them down mentally that they didn't think they were worth a grain of salt, and really gotten themselves to a low level. And all I did was try to work with them, work on a new defense, polish the offense a little bit, but the main thing was try to get them to understand that you still have a lot of talent. You can be a good player. I think you're a good player. This is the things you do right. And I'm going to get a little bit more detail a little bit later on the one-on-one conversations that I have with players. And I know right now I'm giving you a lot of background, and my background, and maybe a little bit boring to you, but I'm going to try to get in more to the psychology than where we're at right now. But when we finally got to the point that I kept trying to instill in them and kept trying to know, make them understand they're a much better player than what they think they are. Once they started believing back in themselves again, that's when we started turning it around. The #1 team in the Southern Conference at that time was Richmond. Now East Carolina. They came into our place. We ended up upsetting them. And after the game, I said to myself, I said, well, you know what? I said, now maybe I'll have a chance to become the head coach of this university the next year. Well, as it may be, I found out the next day they had hired the new coach the night before we even played East Carolina. So here I am, had been married a year, and I'm out of a job, just like Coach Merritt. So luckily for me, we finished the season. The #1 team at that time, Furman, took them down to the wire in the Southern Conference tournament. But after the season was over with, I was lucky enough to land the Coastal Carolina University basketball job in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I remained there 19 years. And I learned early that, again, it's not about the X's and O's, it's about the Jimmies and Joes. You better get some players. If you're going to coach this game, you better get some players. And then once you get the players, you have to work with them mentally to make them a better player, not only with the fundamentals, but make them understand where they're at with their total game. And let them set some goals for themselves. A lot of coaches, they'll bring a team in to start, especially young coaches, and they'll set the team goals for the team. That's not the way to do it. The best way to do it is have the team set their own team goals. Let the individuals set their own individual goals, but at the same time, the individual goals are team-oriented. Because you as a coach, if you set the goal, then it's what you want. If they set the team goals, whether it's to win all their home games, whether it's to win 20, whether it's to make the playoffs, whether it's to win the playoffs, every day in practice, you can reiterate to them what their goals are. If you expect to win every home game, we're going to have to be in better shape than what we are right now. If we expect to make the playoffs, we're going to have to be a much, much better defensive team than what we are. This is what we need to do to get better. You can constantly put a bug in their ear about what they need to do. Remember, this is the goals you set for your team. In the same way, if you've got a kid who said, I want to be the leading rebounder on this team, then call him into the office and say, Johnny, you wrote preseason that you'd like to be the best rebounder on the team. Maybe we need to break that down to the first half and the second half. So you can try to achieve 5 rebounds by the first half and 5 rebounds the second half, so you can reach your goal of at least 9 or 10 rebounds a game. So you have to break it down, but it's best that they set their own goals. Try to get your team to be totally committed. When I say totally committed, at the beginning of the season. Everybody knows the small jump circle, where the 2 players get in to start the game for the tip, and then outside of that is a circle where the players stand around it. And what I started doing with my teams is I said, look, if we're going to be any kind of team at all, I need you to be totally committed. They say, Coach, what do you mean by totally committed? I need you to be all in. I need all 12 of us players, I need all of us to stand inside this circle, that we're all totally in, that we're going to make the commitment that we do what we need to do to reach the goals that we've set as a team. Now, being totally committed means that they're accountable. They're accountable to themselves. They're accountable to their teammate. They're accountable to the coaches. They're accountable to the trainers to make sure that if they're injured or have a blister, that they make sure they take care of themselves. So with this total commitment, when you're all in, I even had t-shirts made up that had a circle on it. And on the inside, it had 2 footprints, and it said all in. Because you're either all in or you're out. That means you're standing on the outside. You haven't made the commitment you need to help to make this team successful. As college coaches, we do a lot of things. To do anything to motivate our players. Goal setting is for sure one of the better ones. But at the same time, when I used to come to practice, I got this from Hubie Brown, the NBA head coach, a Hall of Fame head coach. I used to go to clinics he would put on with Atlanta Hawks. And one thing that Hubie would do at the beginning of every practice, he would come to that center jump circle and have all 12 of his players stand there. And when he would talk to them at the beginning of practice and talk about what they're going to do that day in practice, he would walk around and look at all 12 players and look at them right in the eyes to make sure they were looking back at him. Because normally if a player feels guilty about something, doesn't feel good about himself, he's not going to look back at you in the eyes. He's going to look away. He doesn't want to face up to you. Or maybe his eyes are bloodshot. Now, are his eyes bloodshot from staying up all night studying? Or his eyes bloodshot from being out partying and drinking alcohol? By confronting them face to face and walking and looking at every one of them, then you have a chance to see where your players are every day. So not only would I do that, but a thing that I do even to this day, when I get to practice, I go out of my way to walk around and talk to every player, even as an assistant coach. I go out of my way and walk around and talk to every player so I can see how they're doing, what's on their mind. How's your girlfriend? How's your wife? How's your kids? You look like you're a little tired. Did you have a test last night? Were you up all night studying? Because if you find out a player had a test and was up all night studying, and you feel like he's not giving it all in practice, maybe this is the reason why. But if you know that going into practice, then you don't have to be so disappointed during practice when you feel like he's having a hard time getting through some of the drills. Maybe his girlfriend just dumped him for another guy. Again, your mind controls your body. So if your mind's not right, for sure you don't have your body right. Because again, your mind tells your body what to do. And if your mind is not in a good frame of mind, it's probably not going to tell it to do that much that day. So these are a couple of things that I started in college and continue to learn from our mistakes and my mistakes and continue to try to find different ways to motivate players. I know sometimes we do crazy things. If you feel like your team all at once, if you're successful, we were lucky. Like I said, we won 7 conference championships. We won 4 regular season, 3 tournaments. We played an NCAA tournament in '91 against Indiana and against '93 against the Fab Five Michigan. Anybody heard of the Fab Five? Okay, a few of you have. Indiana, Bobby Knight. How many people heard of Bobby Knight? Okay, outstanding coach. Preparing my team to play Indiana's team made me a better coach. When we got into the heat of battle, we're playing at Louisville in Freedom Hall in front of 16,500 people. The night before the game, we're in practice. And we did this one shooting drill where we'd have half the team on one side of the free throw line extended and the other half on the other side. And we would pass the ball as they came to the free throw line about the nail. And we would do this and shoot till we made 10 in a row. And all at once I saw my assistant getting frustrated because we were having a hard time making 10 in a row. I said, Murphy, relax. I said, do you understand that our team, in a practice, the night before the biggest game of their life against University of Indiana tomorrow, they're practicing in front of 5,000 people. We had 5,000 people watching their practice. And practically all of them from Indiana. They wanted to see how good we were. So again, you have to make Get inside people's minds. Find out what they're thinking. Now, in the game against Indiana, we're not playing well in the first half. Indiana's got a hell of a team. They're one of the top 5 teams in the nation. We got into the Final 64. First time anybody in our conference has been in the Final 64. So, finally, halftime rolls around. My starting center, who came off a great game against Jackson State, just played super. He's having a bad first half. Gets in foul trouble, seems to be doing everything wrong. So we go down to halftime, and my high school coach is sitting down at the end of the bench because I invited him to the game. It's not too far from Illinois to Louisville, Kentucky. So we get into halftime, and I'm walking, looking at our players, trying to figure out what's going on inside their head. Because sometimes at halftime you can get them turned around for the second half. And I looked at Dwayne, my starting center. I said, Dwayne, I said, what seems to be the problem out there, son? You just came off an unbelievable great game against Jackson State. I said, tonight you're already in foul trouble. You just don't seem like yourself. He said, Coach, he said, I'm running down the court. During the game, I look over and I see Bobby Knight sitting there. To him, that was a big deal. He turned over and saw Bobby Knight, the legend coach. Instead of him focusing on playing, he's worried about who's coaching the team that he's playing against. I said, Dwayne, let me worry about Coach Knight. You just worry about focusing and you just worry about playing. I said, look, we got to get this thing totally turned around. I said, I have never seen our team play so soft this whole season. I said, we are like, right now, we're like 25-4. I said, we are such a much better team than this. And we have to go out and prove that we don't wear pink panties. I said, because we're playing soft. We're playing like a bunch of sissies. I said, how are we going to earn our respect back? We go out the second half. Everything comes up a notch. We start playing defense as hard as we can play. Our offense starts clicking. Brian Penny, kid actually was born and raised in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. He goes off the second half. He goes 10 for 10 the second half. He made 5 threes and 5 twos. He ended up with 34 points. With 3 minutes to go, we're down by 3. We come down the break, and one of my players that knocks threes down the break misses a 3. Down by 3 with 3 minutes to go. We're down by 16 at halftime. They come back down. We're playing a matchup zone. The ball goes into the post. Instead of doubling the post, another guard went down who wasn't supposed to. We ended up tripling the post. They kicked the ball out to Damon Bailey, who's a legend in Indiana high school basketball. He knocks down the 3. I later coached against him in the CBA. We go down 6. We come down, we miss. And next thing you know, I call timeout. And we had to go to pressing and fouling. They make the free throws. We continue to miss. We end up losing the game by 10. But at least we gave ourselves a chance to win and earn some great respect in that game. From there, the next year, 2 years later, we played the Fab Five Michigan. I'm not going to go into that game. But after that, 1 year later, I went into pro ball, into the CBA. The CBA is the Continental Basketball Association. The CBA is the high levels you can get in the United States without being in the NBA. Players that play in the NBA go up and down to the CBA, NBA, CBA, NBA. Now they call it it was called the D League for the NBA Developmental League, and now it's called the G League because Gatorade is putting all the money in sponsoring the Developmental League, so they call it the G League. We had players going up and down. We had as you have 18 in training camp. Now you're dealing with players that have wives and families. This is serious business. Because when you set a player down and you have to cut a player because he doesn't, you can only keep 10 on your bench in the CBA, and you have to cut a player. I remember what Jerry West, the great general manager of the Los Angeles Lakers, said. He said, first of all, you need to tell them the truth. Sometimes they don't want to hear the truth, especially if you're going to fire them because they probably did something wrong or wasn't doing their job. But you need to tell them the truth. But first of all, make sure you have all the right reasons as to why you're letting him go as a player or why you're letting him go as a front office personnel. Maybe he's assistant general manager. Maybe he's the head of NBA player personnel. But make sure you have your ducks in a row before you call him in. Once you call him into that big meeting, he said, stick to the point, tell him what you need to tell him the true facts. He said, then, number 3, as you tell him, he said, make sure you tell him with sympathy and empathy. Because this is difficult for them being let go from a job. Even though you're telling them the truth, it's still very difficult for them. And then number 4, Jerry West said, once you've told them as to why you're letting them go, then give them the opportunity to vent. Give them an opportunity to say what they want to say because you cut him as a player or because you cut him as a front office personnel. Because it's much better for them to tell you what they think, whether it be bad or good, than to go outside your office and tell it to your secretary or go off on somebody else. So again, when you're dealing with players, that basketball's their livelihood, it's a big thing when they don't make the team after training camp. CBA players are extremely highly motivated players. You didn't have to give them as much as college players because these guys are all college stars coming to the CBA, trying to get to the NBA either for the first time or there can be players like I had a kid named Jerome Lane. If you saw the highlights on any TV in the States, he's the first one to break a backboard on television. He played at Pittsburgh. He played for the Denver Nuggets for 5 years. He led the CBA in rebounding for me. And I'll never forget, Jerome came to me. He says, Coach, he said, all these other people around me, these other centers, he said, they're getting called up to the NBA and I'm not. He said, why not, Coach? Again, you got to tell them the truth. I said, Jerome, it's real simple. You've been burning the candles on both ends. You've been doing it when you were at Denver. When I said burn the candles on both ends, that means you were working hard all day, but you're partying all night. When they make an investment in you, they don't want their investment to be partying all night. They want that investment to do everything they can to help the Denver Nuggets win the game. I said, you have developed a reputation. I said, the problem is now, you have to live with this reputation until somebody gives you another chance. So again, you have to give them the truth. One of the best things I think that I did to really help my CBA players, and it also has helped our team here in Khalid this year, is you need to have a one-on-one conversation with them and set them down and go over everything from A to Z. And the best place to do this, of course, if you're in pro basketball, is on the road in a hotel room. Because when you set them down, and when you set them down with your assistant. So you have a witness as to what was said in the meeting. And when you set them down, you sit down with every player. And the one you're sitting with at that time, you find out how's everything going at home with your wife, how your kids doing. You let them know that they're not a piece of meat, that you care about them. And as a coach, whether it's college, high school, or pro ball, or any level, players have to understand that you care about them off the court, not just in practice, not just in the game, but you care about what's going on in their lives. Once they understand that you care about them, then they're going to care about you. Because even though you're not trying to get every player to love you, You're just trying to get them, you're just trying to earn their respect. If you earn their respect, then they will put their heart and guts on the floor for you. But they have to know that you genuinely care about them as a human being. So you ask them what's going on. At the same time, you find out maybe his game's not so good because he does have a problem at home. Maybe he has financial problems. All these things can affect the player. And once you find this out, then you can help him solve the problem. Here's the other thing. Once you have one-on-one with the players, and for some reason, European coaches don't like to get in a room with a player one-on-one and talk, even with assistant coach there. Because when I was at Hemke, with the guy that brought me there, he didn't want to have these conversations. And I said, Coach Levitch, I said, we need to set these players down and find out what they're thinking. Because here's what everybody has to understand. The player doesn't know what I'm thinking. I don't know what the player's thinking. So how are we going to find out? The only way we're going to find out is to communicate and have a conversation. If you get them in a hotel room, or if you get them in a locker room, or if you get them in a room with your assistant coach and you have a discussion about what they're thinking, let them tell you what they're thinking. If they want to know, why am I playing behind Johnny? Why is Bobby starting in front of me? Why I'm not getting more playing time? Why I'm not in the last 5 minutes of a game where the games are won and lost? Now you're starting to understand what he's thinking. Or he may say, Coach, what do I need to do to get better? So again, be very truthful, upfront, and honest when you answer every player's questions. And then tell them what you're thinking. And this is what we have to do. Because when you look at the 5 fundamentals of basketball, when you're talking about dribbling, passing, shooting, defense, and rebounding, it doesn't matter if you're Michael Jordan. When Michael Jordan left the game, he still could get a little bit better at every one of the basic fundamentals. So that's where we would start with every player. We would take every player at this high CBA level, which is players going up and down to the NBA, already been in the league and back, and make them understand what they need to do to get a little bit better here, a little bit better there, a little bit better here. If you want more minutes and you want more playing time, then you're going to have to be more serious about coming to practice early, working on what you need to work on, staying a little bit later after practice. Because isn't it amazing? All the best players seem to always practice a little bit longer either before or be the last one to leave the gym. Is that not true? Practically every time. And so, once I started that in the CBA, when I was brought to Hemke in Moscow, Russia, everybody's heard of Hemke, yes? I was with them for 4 years. And a guy named Sergei Levitch, who's the Russian national team coach, he was smart enough that he understood that he needed to take his team to another level. He signed all these players with all this money, because he actually started the team himself. And then he got some investors behind him so he could buy even better players. But when he bought these good players, he said, oh my gosh. He said, I got all these good players. He said, we're trying to take it to another level. He said, CSKA, Moscow Dynamo, Kazan. I think these coaches know more than I do. So he at least realized he needed some help. So he interviewed me at the Rocky Mountain Review in Salt Lake City. After I got done at CBA, I scouted for Utah Jazz for 4 years. I've been around Karl Malone, John Stockton, all those people. Jerry Sloan, unbelievable coach. Anyway, coming back to Hemke, when I came to join him, I took my translator, and we would be in any kind of room with a TV set or with a whiteboard or whatever, and I started teaching him everything that I knew about the game of basketball. And you know what's amazing? Guess who my translator was? The Nowadays Carries, the head coach at Khalid Cromwell right now. That's where the first time the Nowadays and I were together. He was my translator. So as I taught Ilevich, the Nowadays kept his eyes and ears open because he was a young person at the same time. He'd had some great experience being with the University of Missouri, played college basketball in the States. He'd been with the coach of Missouri, who's now the head coach of Utah Jazz. He'd been with the Spurs learning how to do some video stuff. And after he spent a year with Ilevich and I, and again, everything that came out of my mouth, because Ilevich spoke Russian and he spoke Spanish. I don't speak Russian or Spanish. So finally, I started learning a little Russian, but I couldn't speak to him on the level like Coach Carey's, the Nowadays. He speaks perfect Russian. Perfect. The Russians couldn't tell he wasn't Russian. That's how good. He's Lithuanian. But they couldn't tell he was. But anyway, he was not afraid to tell everybody in Russia why he brought me in. It even came out in the biggest paper in Moscow because they wrote an article because we started to do better and better and better and started competing. The only person that was beating us was CSKA. We finished second that year, and we also finished second in the European Cup. They call it the Euro Challenge Cup now, I think. They call it maybe the FIBA Cup then. They're always changing the name. But anyway, we came in second to Juventud out of Spain. And the starting guard on that team that beat us was the same starting guard that won the most valuable player for me when we won the CBA championship in 1997. So, again, players. It's about the Jimmies and Joes. It's not about the X's and O's. So, find a way to get the best players and then find a better way to motivate them. So what happened to Ilevich? Because I not only worked with Ilevich, they fired him. Then I worked with Cassius Kinzura from Lithuania, who was the national team of Lithuania. They fired him. And then I worked with Sergio Scariola, the Spanish national team coach. And I left to become a head coach because I wanted to be a head coach again. And after I left the next year, they fired him. But here's what I learned. The second year I was with Himke. When they fired Ilevich, and we knew it was coming, because he told me. He said, Coach, he said, if we don't win these next couple of games, he said, they're going to fire me, and I'm going to recommend that they hire you as the head coach at Himke. I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, we need to win games. He said, I got all that money from the owners, and they expect us to win 90% of our games, and we haven't won 90% of our games. I said, well, Coach, I said, let's do this. Let's win the games, and let's keep your job. You're the one that brought me here. I want to help you. So the next two games, we won. Christmas came. After Christmas, we lost at Lukoil in Bulgaria. I'll take that back. We played CSKA right after Christmas. Of course, we lost to CSKA because it was on the road. Again, unbelievable team, great team every year. We lose that game. Then we go to Bulgaria and play Lukoil. We lose that game by 7. When we come home, the next day, Coach calls me up and he said, Coach, he said, I want you to come over to my apartment. So I go over to his apartment, and they're the two Russian assistant coaches. He said, they're trying to fire me. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, they're saying I'm not the head coach anymore. And he said, I know they're going to approach you and ask you to be the head coach. He said, I will pay you your whole salary right now for the rest of the year if you won't be the head coach. I said, Coach, I said, I thought you wanted me to be the head coach. He said, I'm trying to pull a power struggle because I've got all the Russian players are not going to play because I more or less have raised all of them and they're not going to play. So if they're not going to play and I'm not going to coach, then they're going to have a hard time winning the game. I said, well, what about the international players? He said, well, hopefully they won't play. I said, I don't know. I said, well, I'll do your wish. So as I went back to the office, from that morning all the way to 10 o'clock that night, the 3 owners and the general manager had me in that office 4 times trying to get me to become the head coach at Hemke. And I told them the reason why I did not want to be the head coach at Hemke. So finally, it got to the point that I said, look, I talked to our captain, Ruben Wojcicki. I said, Ruben, I said, these Russian players have wives and kids. They need to work. And I know these international players are going to play because they have wives and kids and they need to work. I said, let's call up coach and talk him in to let me coach this team. And hopefully he can get back in the graces and come back to Hemke one day. And so that's what happened. I told him, I said, look, if I'm going to sign this contract, I want to coach the team for the rest of the season. And how many Russians we got in here? We got any Russians in this group? Okay. Well, I thought I had a complete, legit contract. I take my team. What's the first thing I did with my team? I sat them down and went one-on-one with every one of them with my assistant coach. I told them the truth. I told them everything they needed to do. I didn't care if they were Russian. I didn't care if they were from, we had players from Slovenia. We had players from Italy on the team. We had 2 Americans on the team. I went over everything with every player one-on-one to make sure they understood where I was coming from. I need to know what they were thinking. You need to communicate with your players. You got to talk to your players. You got to get them in a situation where they'll tell you what's on their mind. We won the first game against the Russian team by 25 or 20-some points. We're getting ready to play. How are we doing on time?
You have time. 35 minutes.
Okay, great. So I said, we're getting ready to play the same team, Lukoil out of Bulgaria. So the mayor of Hemke comes to my practice the night before the game. He's let me know, he says, Coach, he said, we really need to win this game. And of course he's telling me all this through a translator and 2 bodyguards. Everybody in Russia, if they got any money, they all got bodyguards. We all know that. So I told him, I said, I'm going to do everything I can to help our team win this game tomorrow night against Lukoil from Bulgaria, because I know they're a good team. And he had this, he's always dressed to the nines, this beautiful suit. So I took my fingers and rubbed his suit. He says, Coach, you like my suit? I said, yeah, it's a beautiful suit you have on. He said, I'll tell you what. We win this game tomorrow night, I'll buy you a tailored suit just like it. I said, fantastic, you're on. So the next night, we played Lukoil. At the end of the 3rd quarter, we were up by 30 points. 30 points. The same team we lost to by 7. And again, the reason why is everybody understood the role. Everybody understood what I was thinking. I understood what they were thinking. They understood what was a good shot. They understood what was a bad shot. They understand what I approved of them doing and what I didn't approve of them doing. Because you can't be afraid to tell players what they can and cannot do. Because when I was a college coach, I typed this up and put it on my desk. You get what you demand. If you don't demand players to do things the right way, it's going to jump up and bite you every time you're in a championship game. Because my 2nd, 3rd year at Coastal, we lost the championship both times because I wasn't enough demanding on certain players one or two players, and it always shows up in the championship game. So, anyway, to get on with the story, we win that game. We win the next two Russian games by 28, 27 points. We're 4-0. And all at once, we're on the road tomorrow. I remember it like it was yesterday. The general manager calls me down to his room. He says, Coach, he said, I talked to the owners and they decided to make a change. I said, you're kidding me. They decided to make a change. I said, why you say that? He said, well, they don't feel comfortable because you don't speak Russian. I said, well, all the players are not having any trouble understanding me. We're winning every game by 25 plus. He said, Coach, he said, this is what they want to do. I said, Coach, I said, I have a contract. He looked at me and says, Coach, this is Russian. Yeah, this is Russian. He said, look, he said, we really appreciate the job you've done. We want you to stay on as a new head coach's assistant, and we want you to help him just like you helped Ilevich. So I can either take my ego and go back to the United States, or I can swallow my pride and stay there and make money. I stayed there and made money a total of 4 years because they did the same thing to Kimzura, and they did the same thing to Scariola. Then they did the same thing to Kurtinitis, and the coach that's there now. You know how it is in Europe? It's the same in the United States. At professional level, if you don't win all the games they think you didn't need to win, and here's what you have to remember about owners. It doesn't matter if the owners are wrong, they're the owners. I'll give you a story about Venezuela. I'm coaching in the summer league in Venezuela. Everybody heard of the country Venezuela, yes? My owner brings in a new American. The guy's out of shape. We're playing in Margarita Island. We lose a game. I try to play him enough to show my owner that he's totally out of shape, he can't play. We should have never brought the guy in. We ended up losing the first night by 3 or 4 points. The second night, we win by 2 points. So we fly back to Caracas, we take the bus back. I call up my agent. Now this is way back in 2000 and summer 2003, I think. I called up my agent, I said, Bill, I said, I need another American center that can play. Can you please help me get a center? He said, yeah, Coach. He said, what's your problem? I said, well, the owner brought in this kid that's out of shape, he can't play. I said, you know, I'll talk to him when I get off the bus, but we need another American center. So right before we got off the bus, he called me back and he says, Coach, he said, you're not going to need that new American center. I said, what are you talking about, Bill? He said, as soon as you get off the bus, you're going to be fired. I said, really? So what you have to understand, it doesn't matter if the owner is wrong. He's the owner, and he has the privilege to fire you. So the one thing, getting back to the psychology of coaching, becoming an assistant coach at Himki, and I was with Himki for 4 years. I was Sergei Basarevich, an outstanding Russian coach, an outstanding coach, period. And Ilevich was also a good coach, very good man. Sergei Basarevich, who's now the Russian national team coach, I was with him in Samara for a year, I was with him in Lokomotiv for a year. And when I came to be with Ilevich, I went from a head coach to assistant coach, so I learned right away, I went from being the bad cop to the good cop. Because when you're the head coach, you got the hammer. You have all the leverage. When you're assistant coach, you don't have all the leverage. But what you can do is you can be the good cop and you can find out what's going on with every player. You can talk to them every day before practice. You can work with them before practice. You can work with them after practice. And you can find out what's going on in their head. And I felt like it was my job as an assistant coach. And I do the same thing today with Khalid Kramer. I do everything I can mentally to try to get every player ready to practice every day before practice. And then during practice, I try to talk to them when I can get a word in edgewise to motivate them to do this a little bit better, do that a little bit better, try to give them some encouragement. It's the same thing I did at Hempkey. During practice, the same way. I'm trying to make them understand what they got to do to be a better player. If you want playing time, you're going to have to prove to coach how bad you want that playing time. You're going to have to work harder than you're doing it right now. You've got to get to their head. Again, their mind controls their body. So, as the good cop, it's easy for all the players to get the love of the assistant, because I'm not coming down and cracking them with a whip like the head coach is who has a hammer. And so therefore you have an opportunity to get a little bit closer to the players and find out what they're thinking so you can help them become a better player, so you can have better practices, and therefore they also will produce better in the game. During the games, what do? It's all these little things you watch and see and go on during a game. And then, you don't have to be an assistant to do this. You can be a head coach. When you see a player is lacking in confidence, maybe his is his shot. He's getting a perfect shot, and he's not making it. Just like Kitsy, who plays for us, if I see the kid is taking good shots and not going in, whether we're in a timeout or when he's coming off and sitting down on the bench, I said, kid, I said, look, you're a great shooter. You just need to keep shooting the ball. I said, you're a great shooter. That little self-confidence, and it could be Kid, it could be Kirby, who just joined the team, who's an Estonian. I did the same thing with him. He missed a couple shots. He came off the game. I said, Kirby, again, I said, you've been knocking it down in practice. I said, just relax. When you get your good shot, take your good shot. He went back out there and made his next 2 shots. You can lift a player up by giving them sugar instead of salt. Too many coaches give too much salt. Please understand the difference between salt and sugar. Sugar is positive reinforcement. Salt is negative reinforcement. It's just like if you tell your little boy or your little girl, you're stupid. You're stupid for doing that. You're stupid for doing this. You're stupid, you can't read. You're stupid. You tell somebody stupid enough times, you know what? They're going to believe they're stupid. It's the same way with a player. If you tell a player, all you're going to do is turn the ball over, turn the ball over, turn the ball over, if you're only on them with a complete negative, then it's just going to make it worse. So you got to find a way to spin it, and you got to find a way to get back to that player and make it a positive situation for him and try to encourage him. Don't put yourself in situations where you end up turning the ball over. I said, make the first easy pass. Don't try to make difficult passes. It's just like some players are not shooting a good percentage in the game. You know why? They're taking bad shots. Good shooters become poor shooters when they take poor shots. Let's say it again. Good shooters become poor shooters when they take poor shots. Make sure your shooters are taking good shots. And if the defense is so good that they can't get a good shot, like against Seska, where we end up losing 85-80, they may just take some tough shots. When you're taking tough shots, it's hard to make all of them. Because of the good shots, you may make 6%. Of the bad shots, you may only make 10%. So it's a big difference when you take bad shots and good shots. So again, it's just like when you have a player on the team that's getting all the rebounds, but yet when he runs the floor on the break, he's never getting rewarded. When I say rewarded, on the break, he's never getting the ball to try to score inside. They get the ball, he gets a rebound, ball goes out on the break, and all the guards do every time is they jack up the three. Now you do that about 3 or 4 times, and that big man is getting all those rebounds and playing defense inside. If he doesn't get some touches, if he doesn't get the ball, all at once, for some reason, his defense and rebounding was not as good as it was. Because everybody knows this. How many here have played the game of basketball? How many here have played the game? Raise your hand. Almost everybody. So all of us know when we shoot and we score and we're running back on defense, if we score, that 94 feet going back on defense, you just sort of glide on the air. You don't even feel yourself running. You're just sort of up on the air. You get back on defense like that. But when you miss, a lot hard to get back on defense when you miss, isn't it? So again, think about what's going on with the minds of your players and what makes them tick. Talk to your players, communicate with them, make them understand what you're thinking, and find out what they're thinking. I think also, as coaches, we even end up motivating through discipline. When I say discipline, you have to make sure that you have certain guidelines and the players understand your guidelines, because I don't care if it's your young kids at home or your kids in college or your kids in the CBA or your kids playing for Himke, your kids playing for Khalid, your kids playing in the NBA, your kids playing in the EuroLeague. All these people, even though they don't act like it, they want to be disciplined. They may not act like it, and they don't like it when they're disciplined, but if you don't discipline, they respect you less. And this is what a lot of European coaches have a hard time coaching American players. It's almost like some European coaches need an American assistant just so they can handle American players. Well, American players are any different than European players. Yeah, they come from a different background sometimes. Yeah, maybe there's certain things, but every American that I've dealt with in Europe or dealt with in the United States, again, you have to give guidelines, you have to discipline. But I will say this, the European player is extremely coachable, extremely coachable. And this is why Greg Popovich has won so many NBA championships. Because what does he do? He gets great European players that are extremely coachable, that are easy to discipline and will do what he asks them to do. But every American that I've seen, whether they're coming from the D-League, from the CBA, when they come to Europe, they normally fall right in line with the rest of the European players and do what the coach says he needs to do to be coachable. Because money talks. Because if they don't do what they're supposed to do, it's pretty easy to hit them in the pocketbook. Because when you hit players in the pocketbook at the pro level, all at once they listen. Because they don't want some of their salary taken away. But Greg Popovich, R.C. Buford, his general manager, they do a great job. If they don't find a great European in the first round, every year you look at their second round picks and they'll be European players. And here's why. If you draft an American player in the second round, that means you have to bring him to training camp. If he comes to training camp and he gets cut, that NBA team loses his rights. He's gone. He's no longer the rights of the Spurs or the Hawks or anybody else, or the Lakers. Now, if you draft a European player in the second round, now you don't have to bring him to training camp. All you got to do is send him back to Spain, send him back to Estonia, send him back to Latvia, send him back to Bulgaria. Let him go back to his mother country. Let him get better. Why we keep your rights? As he grows, becomes better, all at once after 1 year, 2 years, I bring him back, and now I have a player because I didn't lose his rights. I know Coach Allar asked me to talk about the, does that mean I got 15 minutes left? Coach Allar said, talk about, from the NAIA to Division I to Division II, Division I to the Pro Ball, AAA to the CBA to the NBA. Like I said, I scouted 4 years for the NBA for the Utah Jazz. And while you're doing that, you're trying to figure out these young kids that are in college, what they're going to be like 3, 4 years down the line. Because they're drafting these kids right after their freshman year in college. And actually, the NBA has kind of created a monster. Because when they get all these young kids with an NBA team, because if you have 3 years in a row, if you draft a freshman out of college, all but once you got all these young players on a team, they're not even old enough to buy a beer on the road. And now it gets to be almost a babysitting situation because they're still not completely mentally mature. And I think if you want a mature person, whether it's in Europe or whether it's in the States, once they graduate from high school, let them be in the military 9 months to a year. You know why? Because in the military, they have to do what they're told to do, whether they like it or not. Because as a college coach, I had kids coming to me as freshmen in college. Their parents had never made them do what they didn't want to do. If they didn't want to mow the yard, oh, it's okay, Johnny. I know you're hot. Sit down, have some lemonade. You don't have to mow the yard. And all at once in college, you're making them do what they have to do, and they don't like it. So if a person's been in the service, whether it's over here or in the States, now you have a much more mature person. But also, one question Howard brought up was, what about, should a kid coming out of high school, should he go to the States and play for an NCAA school, or should he be with a team like Himki 2? Should he be with a team like CSKA? Should he go to a team in Spain? Should he stay with a pro team here in Estonia? Well, my feeling is this. I think what you get out of going to a college, especially if you stay 4 years, you get a much more well-rounded person that gets more education. Their game level comes up. Now they're playing at the college level. Now, again, depends on what college they're with. Their college level may be like Duke or North Carolina or Kansas or LSU or whatever, or it may be lower. So he may play pro ball here and actually become a better player quicker. And the only reason that I was given in Russia why they don't want a Russian kid to go to the United States and play in NCAA school is because they're afraid they're going to lose him. In other words, once they have him on a contract at Himki 2, if he goes to the United States and plays 4 years of college ball, when he comes back, CSKA may sign him instead of us. And that was the biggest negative reason that I heard in Russia why they didn't want their kids playing NCAA ball. I've tried to help some people that wanted to play one of their kids from Europe to play in the United States and play NCAA. And some of them I was able to help, and some of them couldn't find the right situation they wanted. Because again, it's not easy going to the States and being that far away from your home country, from your family and everything else. That's Coach Carey's. He did that. He went his junior and senior year in high school to do 2 different high schools in the States. Then he went 4 years to college in the States. That's why he speaks English so well. He was 6 years in the States. Then after that, he's with the University of Missouri. So he spent a lot of quality time in the States. Not only helping himself academically and getting his degrees, but also understanding from all the great coaches he was around, and also about how to play the game a little bit better. I really think that Dennis Carey is one of the best young coaches in Europe right now. And I don't know how long Khalid Kromo was going to be able to keep him, because he's in high demand. He's got people after him already. And whether he'll be here next year or not, I don't know. But he does an unbelievable job with pick and roll defense, just an unbelievable job. I'm just about to run out of time. I was hoping I could do a little X and O and show you a matchup zone or after timeout play, but we're about out of time. How about questions? Somebody give me a question about anything and I'll try to answer it for you. Question? Don't be bashful. Raise your hand. I guess I've worn you out. Everybody needs to drink or go to the bathroom. I'm tired of listening to me one. Any questions about anything? How we doing on time?
They are tired, probably. I don't know.
Sir?
But what do you think about Estonian basketball? And we want to prove you do.
What do I think about Estonian basketball?
Yeah, general and true.
Well,
coach need to be honest.
Tell the truth, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I've seen most of the professional teams in Estonia by now. And I think that one of the things that's hurting some of the professional teams in Estonia is you don't have enough high-level professional players to have that many teams. It's just like when I was in the CBA in the States, we only had at the most 12 CBA teams, so every team had a lot of really good players. Now they've got like 28 G League teams, so the talent's watered down in the G League compared to what it used to be. But there's a lot of, like, we got some really good Estonian players on our team. And we played against some good players in Estonia on other pro teams that I wish were with our team. But I think the country doesn't have enough young men to support how many pro teams they have. To have high levels of pro ball as you'd like to have. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, we understand. Your thought is to make less professional teams.
That, if you want to have a higher level competition, I think that would probably be the route to go. I mean, just like the other thing I know is a problem with the Estonian national team. Why they decided to play national team games during the season rather than during the summer. It's been very, very difficult for national team coaches. It's been very difficult with teams, whether they're in Russia, they're in Spain, Estonia, because you're letting your best players go to a national team and they could get hurt. They could, you want to give them a chance to rest, takes them away from your team. At the same time, they want to play for their country. So it's a double-edged sword.
We have good players, but
yeah.
They are all abroad, young players.
Is that right?
Yeah, we go to top 8 in Europe in 2025.
Where are these players now? You tell me this.
Italy, Germany, Spain.
There's some players right now.
Yeah, under 20,
under 18. I didn't realize that. Question?
How you know?
Yes, I have a question. I know Larry's, I have spoken with him, training the same hall. I'm from Hamburg. I really like his demanding on the training. Allah is not is not used to as too much. But why you have so many injuries? Do you understand that you are overtraining them? But recovery is very important.
He's friend of Rainbow, so you know.
You have to recover more.
You know, part of it, a couple of players that we've had injured came here and only got into what we're doing in 1 or 2 days. They were not in the shape that they needed to be when they got here. And when they got pushed to the level that you have to be able to compete, then you're going to end up with injuries. And the other problem is, once you have 1 or 2 injured, and we have a skeleton crew to begin with, now what few players you have, they're spending more time on the court in practice. They're spending more time on the court in the game. And now, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to rest everybody in practice and they're out of shape for the game? Or when they get to the game, you're supposed to not try to win the game? Again, it's a double-edged sword. But as far as him overtraining, there's only one situation all year where when the players didn't do what they're supposed to do, especially as far as they didn't like the refereeing in practice, when you put the discipline in, sometimes, you know, it's like you have to run. Because either you want to have basketball practice or you want to have track practice. So most players don't want to have track practice. So what you have to do, you have to be coachable and do what the coach asks you to do. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what's going on.
What do you think about number of games? Like in NBA, 82 plus playoffs, in EuroLeague?
Well, here's what's happened. Because the owners are spending all this money on players, they're trying to have all these games so people pay at the gate so they can get their money back and make money. This is what's happened in the NBA. Because the players' salaries kept going up, they had to add preseason games, they had to add to the schedule, so they played more games, home games. Then you got to play that many away games, so people are paying more often so you can pay the players. Luckily, David Stern, who's a great commissioner in the NBA, he got the NBA spread out all over the world. And what really helped him was the internet and cable TV. Because when I first came to Russia in the summer of '93 with the college all-star team, when I saw these Russian women, the clock went back to 1940-41, the way they dressed and everything else. I come back in 2005, and they're dressed to the nines, and they're like they're walking in New York City. So this is what cable TV and the internet has done. It's the same way with the game of basketball. The NBA is spread throughout the whole world because of people of the Dream Team. The Dream Team came right there at the time with the internet and the cable TV. And because they're popular, people are watching the NBA on TV all over the world. So he sold this TV package of the NBA, not only in the States, but all over the world. There's people like China. Yao Ming, who played for the Rockets. There's a lot of people in China watching the NBA. That's money. So now the NBA doesn't have to play so many games because they have the money to pay the players, but at the same time, the salaries still keep going up, so they have to find a way to pay.
But in Europe, same thing. Number of games are going up
Yeah.
and up.
And it's like he said, it's a great demand on the players. And, you know, coaches are getting hired and fired on winning and losing. So they're trying to do everything they can to win the game. And if you rest all these players, you're automatically saying, okay, we're willing to lose a game so we can rest and play the next game. And this is what Popovich has got criticized for with the San Antonio Spurs. setting some players down to let them rest because we've got so many games, as long as we make the playoffs. And here's the problem. Who's your favorite NBA player? Let's say it's LeBron. You take your 3 kids and your wife, each of them $100. Ticket. That's $400, $500 to go to an NBA game. And now you got to buy a souvenir. That adds up another $100. And so they're going there to see their favorite player, LeBron James. What happens that night? LeBron James decides to rest and doesn't play. So you spend all that money and they don't even get to see the player they came to see play. So it's become a problem. It's the same like in the CBA. You know, when a player gets called up from the D League or G League now to the NBA, when they go to a D League arena and they expect, like I had a great player play for me by the name of Vashawn Leonard, who played for Miami Heat and started for Miami Heat for years. And when they came back to see, because he was leading the CBA in scoring, 30 points a game, when they came in to see him play that night and brought the whole family, because we want to see Vashawn, he was gone to the NBA. And these people came and they're going, oh. We came to see the Oklahoma City Cavs, we came to see Vashawn, but he's gone to Miami Heat. So it's tough. The entertainment dollar is tough. Any other questions?
Planning of coaching is very important. Planning is very important.
I understand. Any other questions? You've been a great audience. Hopefully I didn't bore you with too many trivia stuff, but I tried to set things up so you'd understand where I was coming from. But please understand, you must sit down with your players, get to know them, communicate with them, so you understand where they're coming from, and you understand what's on their mind, what they're thinking, so they know what you're thinking. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, and today is that's it. And tomorrow we will have international transfer day. So you saw the schedule. We start at 10 o'clock. People from FIBA is coming to talk about rules, examples. We have NBA scout coming, talking what scouts are looking in players. We will have Sigma Sport agent coming to talk about how to build up career in other countries. We will have Anna Mettula coming from Finland to talk about Finnish examples, and then we have one parent coming to talk about what mother and father feels if both sons are going away from home. So see you tomorrow.